And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I would be doing better if my Notre Dame Fighting Irish had won, and also if I hadn't gone to bed at 1 a.m. last night and then woke up at 4 for a 6 a.m. flight to get back to New Jersey. But outside of that, though, Blake, I'm excited by the fact that last night, or yesterday, really, yesterday's show, we exploded through a number of milestones that I wanted us to try and hit, which was we went over 7,500 views on a live show. We had over 700 people in Sunday's live show, and we're well over 18,000, man. We're about to hit 19,000 subs, dude. I couldn't have been more satisfied with how week one went for us. It was a fantastic start to the year.
Would you let Notre Dame go 6-6 if it meant Ruffino and Joe had 30,000 subs at the end of the year?
Depends how much money we make. It depends how much money we make. I will not answer that question.
Somebody asked me that the year that Orgeron went 6-6. I was like, because of the fact that we were in a head coaching search, yes, I didn't mind it at all. But I always do find it a little bit funny when people ask that. Yes, we do greatly appreciate all of you. Clearly the biggest month for Ruffino and Joe show. We greatly appreciate everybody for tuning in and giving us the ability to do this full time. You have been gracious to us, all of us out there. And look, me and Joe don't normally agree on a lot of things, but we give you everything we got, and we're glad to be a part of your college football routine. Do us a favor if you haven't done so already. Like 45% of you that watch the show still have not yet subscribed. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts too, if you don't mind. Rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, we are going to talk about Notre Dame and Miami here today, and unfortunately, I was right about something that I don't want to bring up to you, but we will mention this Notre Dame and Miami game. South Carolina and Virginia Tech, as well as LaNorris Sellers and Nick Harbor, something that college football needs to keep their eye on. We'll talk about that as the South Carolina, Virginia Tech went down the exact way that college football intended it to go down, with Shane Beamer getting a special team touchdown and pretty much ending the game. So we'll talk about that. Oh, by the way, we got a week 2 preview that we're going to get to tonight, Michigan versus Oklahoma. Joe, watching both of these teams in week 1, I don't know.
I don't know how we can really even take anything away from either of the games that they played in.
I can take one thing away from Oklahoma that worries me.
What is that without going too deep?
Their run game. How you let Illinois State outrush you.
Well, Jaden Ott, I need to know what the heck's going on there. He's not listed. Yeah, he's not listed as a starter. He gets 1 carry, I think, for like -3. Like, it's just a very weird, off-balance situation.
He's hurt.
That's a problem.
It's a problem. So we'll talk about that. We're not going to go too deep into that right now. But everybody do us a favor, hit the like and share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and all those social media pages. Again, we ask you to subscribe. Just do us a favor and subscribe. And Joe, every episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. But we do have a pretty special announcement that we got to get to here, as we are adding our good friends over at Gametime, something that you and I have been using for quite some time. Gametime called and knocked on the door and said, Blake, we don't like what you say, but we love Joe, so we want to be a part of the show. Shout out to our good friends over at Gametime.
And it was perfect timing when they decided they're going to be sponsoring one show a week for us for the month of September, that I bought my tickets for the Miami game on Gametime. Went to the Notre Dame Miami game with my dad, and I got to be honest with you guys, it was a pain in the butt trying to figure out how much the tickets were going to cost when I was going on all these other platforms. I went on Gametime. I'm blown away because the fees are included in the price. You know what you're dealing with. You save even more money when you choose a section and you let Gametime choose those seats for you. We had a great view. The price that we got them at was fantastic, and we didn't end up breaking the bank for 5 tickets. So we ended up getting the perfect night for that game, minus Notre Dame not winning. Gametime is legit tickets. They're delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Gametime app and use code Ruffino Don't know how your name was picked for the promo code, by the way, for $20 off for your first purchase. And I got my tickets for such a great price, as I just said there, when I use Game Time to buy my tickets for the Miami Notre Dame game. If you're looking to get the right tickets for your team this season, make sure to download the Game Time app and use code Ruffino, Ruffino, for $20 off that first purchase.
Greatly appreciate our good friends over at FanDuel and our good friends now over at Game Time. The Jet 305 says, hope my people gave you a nice welcome. Joe, was it loud in there?
Okay, I know you're trying to instigate. I said this and it bothered some Miami fans. Miami fans, you guys know that I have been supporters of you guys. I have family members that went to Miami. That's part of the reason why I've been like very supportive of Miami. I have no ill will compared to the average Notre Dame fan towards Miami. I have no problem with Miami. Fans were respectful. They absolutely were passionate. They were loud. My only point that I said when I didn't think that the stadium was like super, super loud, it's the way that it's constructed. It just doesn't get as loud as other stadiums. That was not what the criticism was, and I got taken completely out of context. I'm not doubling down or anything like that. Yes, the Miami fans were juiced up. They were excited for the game. The environment was great. It was exciting, and it was wet because it was raining.
That's what she said. Harrison says you guys are on the SC newest hype video. We did not see this. Did you see it? Which
South
SC?
Carolina?
South Carolina or USC? Because if it's USC, boy, they you said some really bad things to USC.
Well, and South Carolina.
Yeah, true. I've been really good friends of theirs. But so look, let's go ahead since we're already there. Let's get to the Miami and Notre Dame game. Do us a favor, everybody, hit the like and share. Joe, Notre Dame goes down to Miami, Florida, in what was a top 10 matchup between two massive rivals, the Hurricanes and the Fighting Irish. It's not missed upon me. I went back and watched this. Marcus Freeman running out of the tunnel talking trash to Florida players was one of the most epic things that I've seen in college football. It just means it's so awesome to see that it's back. But what a spectacular game that we had between Miami and Notre Dame. When you go back and watch it, I know you were there, and I know that you've gone back and watched it in its infancy. Your thoughts on what happened between Notre Dame and Miami last night?
I want to first focus on what Miami did. Blake, I spent this offseason pushing one narrative about Miami. I really thought that the moves that Miami made were the necessary integral ones that they needed to make in order to take the next step, in order for them to win the ACC this year. I talked about the hiring of Corey Heatherman and what that was going to do. I talked about how they brought in another third running back in this 3-deep, big-bodied, physical, hard-nosed running back group, that they were going to lean on it. And what I saw in this game, and that stood out to me, and it was the whole game, I kept just saying to myself, like, damn, this is too much for Notre Dame in some areas. And what I'm getting at here is that they were able to fall forward for extra yards. They were able to grind out in situations when they needed to, running the football. They beat Notre Dame at their game.
Yes.
They controlled time of possession. They slowed the game down. They controlled the rock. And then Carson Beck acted like a game manager, and he connected with his guys when he needed to. He went through his reads. He found Malachi Tony, and they were able to just get the necessary gains that they needed. They didn't have as many explosive plays as Notre Dame. Notre Dame had 7 compared to Miami's 3, but slowing the game down helped them. But the biggest part about this, Blake, Corey Heatherman comes in, 4 new defensive backs. That defense was so much more fundamentally sound, and that was Heatherman's calling card at Minnesota.
Tackle,
rally to the football, player assignment. That was the difference. That was the difference in this game, Blake, and I think it is a difference that is going to translate on a week-by-week basis.
You can make the argument the two teams that had playoff aspirations last year. Like, I think of LSU, they went out and fixed their wrongs, right, through the portal. You have a situation where I think Miami might have done the same with that secondary. Joe, coming into the game, the reason I picked Miami going into the game was I thought that massive offensive line would just push people around. I don't think that they pushed Notre Dame around as much as people are like saying that they did. The problem was in the first half, Joe, they were averaging 6-7 yards a carry. Fletcher and Brown just kept getting tough yards. They kept making guys miss in a box. Joe, I think what happened here, and you brought this up, and I want to bring it to light here. The first half, Notre Dame was not ready to get punched in the mouth. They just were not.
No.
As the game went on, I thought Notre Dame weathered the storm, and Miami got way too conservative in the end here. They were trying to just run the ball to get first downs, and it almost bit them in the backside. As C.J. Carr starts finding a rhythm in the second half, they were able to get in. But, Joe, the bottom line story is I don't think with the new receivers, I don't think with Carson Beck, I don't think Miami opened this thing up at all. They weren't doing anything very special offensively in the pass game. They beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame's own game. They kept running the ball right at you and said, stop it. And, Joe, quite frankly, I don't think it's a bad defensive front seven. I don't think the linebackers played great when guys got to the second level. They couldn't get off blocks. They just could not, it felt like in the first half, get off the surge. You brought up the true freshman in Tony. And I think a lot of people's questions about Miami coming into the season, look, C.J. Daniels had a good year, not a great year at LSU, didn't have any touchdowns. What is this receiving core going to be after you got to replace them? This kid, Tony, they did not have an answer for in the first half. They just didn't. 5 of his 6 catches coming in the first half. The long touchdown pass, the 3 third downs that he converted on a couple of drag routes. That kid reminds me of a shortened Jaden Waddle, by the way. The way that he just runs, the explosiveness, even in the punt return.
Yep.
Regardless of that, I just felt like that Notre Dame was on their heels early and got punched in the mouth. I want to bring this up. Notre Dame did fight back, and we were texting this during the game. Is Mario going to Mario this thing? But the difference this year, I felt, than maybe some of last year, and we got a long way to go in this. Joe, I felt like they didn't blink, right? Like they didn't blink. They got to go down there to get a field goal, and they did. And they executed. Now, I think that they wish that they would have probably gotten a couple more first downs. Notre Dame makes the stop there. They're able to kick the field goal. By the way, I thought I thought Miami in the first half, Joe, could have extended this thing, right? They have a special teams issue on the field goal after they get a turnover in the beginning of this on the fumble. They just couldn't execute in the big situations. They went 5 of 14 on third down, by the way. That cannot happen moving forward. They're going to have to execute more on third downs. But I felt like that they were a little conservative in the pass game, but this big offensive line dominated and got it moving. Joe, and I got to be real with you, this is probably the storyline of the game. Bain and the boys whipped that Notre Dame offensive line. They whipped him. I mean, what was going on at tackle in the second half, with all due respect to Knapp, and we try to be very careful about pointing players. That tackle room got their asses whooped. You legitimately gave up 7 pressures with 9 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. That's abysmal. Utterly abysmal. Notre Dame's going to have to figure that out quickly, okay? And they're going to have to figure it out fast. But I think the difference that we saw last night was that Miami's front 7 and their lines of scrimmage just took the game over and won it for them.
Yeah, I think that before we dig into the Notre Dame stuff, because the Tony's success, I think, there's a deeper reason for why that happened, and I'm going to get to it in a second, why I'm going to be critical of Notre Dame's coordinators in the game.
Got to get out of man-to-man coverage, brother.
Right. I just want to
they got to. Let's not. Hold on.
Yeah. Well, wait. Can we? They did, so that's the point I was going to reinforce here with Miami's, that Miami's coordinators had the better game, defensively, offensively. They better set up their guys to succeed. Tony's going to be really exciting to watch, and that was one of the questions that we had coming into the season: is You're putting out Restrepo. Sammy Brown's gone. You're losing all these faces. Elijah Arroyo, who is going to step up? Instead, they pivot their approach. They've got this deep running back room. They ran the ball hard in short areas. They didn't even really have any explosive running plays. Most of the times where guys broke a tackle at the line of scrimmage, they were tackled like 8 yards or 7 yards later. There was no long, big run that broke off that opened up their offense. It was just enough to keep moving the chains. But having Tony's emergence, and CJ Daniels obviously played amazing with the catch that he had. That happened right in front of me. It was probably one of the craziest things that I've seen in person,
Absolutely,
by the way.
Insane. Absolutely insane catch.
Outside of watching Jeremiah Love jump over somebody and then it get called back. But the way that Tony as a 17-year-old is already doing his Ryan Williams thing and emerged the way that he did, not lining up as the primary target, is what Miami needed, because it felt like Notre Dame was prepared to go and match up with all these other receivers. But here came Tony leaking out in a situation where nobody was tracking him, or he was coming across the middle of the field and somebody got caught up in traffic. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They were not prepared for it.
Well, I mean, I guess it's difficult to be prepared for how much a team's going to use a true freshman, but it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. Here's the problem, though. How many times has he got to catch a football before you get out of man? And legitimately, Carson Beck ate them alive in the first half. He ate them alive. I thought that the pump fake and then the lob to C.J. Daniels, the one-handed grab, I think it's crazy that he's got guys making plays like that when Georgia was just dropping passes. And to be real with you, I saw a guy, even on some of the scrambles, it's like, hey, man, y'all threw me under the bus last year saying Georgia couldn't win after I left. And, I mean, I thought that he played good. There were some things he's got to clean up. Let's just be real. But, man, he made some really freaking good throws. I thought he manipulated the pocket really well. How does that connection with C.J. Daniels and Tony go forward? I don't know if outside of – they're going to have to find someone outside of Tony to get vertical, but I thought Beck played pretty well, to be real with you.
I did too. I thought that he made the necessary plays in order for them to just keep moving forward. And this was the big talking point with Carson Beck, Blake, was at Georgia, it was he felt like he had to be Superman, and he kept pressing and he kept making mistakes. It kind of – here's the funny thing. We're talking a lot about Miami. A lot of the things that they did right is very eerily similar to what LSU did right, where just like we talked about with Nussmeier, he took what was given to him. He stayed composed.
Experience.
Right. Learning from his mistakes.
Joe, name an experienced quarterback that lost besides Club.
Right. Well, yeah, and that was because he was going up against another experienced guy. We talked about at Media Days why we had high hopes for Carson Beck this season, because just listening to Carson Beck, he sounded a lot more intentional and he sounded like a tremendous leader. And I think a lot of people were saying some really messed up things about this kid this offseason because of he said, she said stuff with an ex-girlfriend. We're questioning his capability to lead a football team because his girlfriend said he was a little bit odd. Like, who gives a shit?
Well, and the not loving football comment at Georgia. I mean, Joe, this kid missed a whole spring. What's it going to be like when he starts really getting connection? Joe, first off, he went up against some really damn good corners and he missed an entire spring. He's coming back from a UCL injury. Just to throw this out there. I know some of the college football world doesn't really get into college baseball like I do. Do you realize how inaccurate those guys are coming out? Like, Joe, LSU has a guy throwing 101, 102. His name's Chase Shores. He was the most inaccurate guy in the beginning of the season. It's not easy. It just isn't easy. And I thought that he was highly accurate in some situations. The one to Tony in the end zone was insane to me. Like, they're only going to be better is where I'm trying to get with that. Like, some of the inaccuracies are he's got to find the rhythm, but, man, he's coming off a UCL surgery.
I do think that you could kind of see the velocity's still probably not 100% there, but as you just talked about the recovery timetable, he's probably be middle of the year by the time it's fully back. Brock Purdy kind of had the same problem when he was coming back from his UCL issue,
yes. Yep.
I want to talk about Notre Dame though, because this is me being a Notre Dame fan. It's there's a lot of frustration and commiseration that's happening with the performance. And I really think, as you said, both coordinators were outcoached. And I think that the outcoaching happened because they were incredibly timid. This team came out flat. It has been something that I've talked about so much under Marcus Freeman, that when they need to come out firing, they seemingly don't. The thing that they did differently in the college football playoff is that they were a second half team. They made plays in situations as the game progressed despite slow starts. That didn't happen against Miami. They didn't lock in until the third quarter, late in the third quarter. Defensively, I could not stand the approach by Chris Ash. It was predictable, unaggressive pass coverage that created a lot of openings in zone coverage, allowed for Tony to get open, leaking across the field so many times, and they didn't scheme any pressures when they needed to. They didn't get home until later on in the game. They needed to get in Carson Beck's face early, and they couldn't accomplish it. That, to me, is on Ash's shoulders for not effectively putting together a game plan to go after Beck, who has been mistake-prone. Again, credit to Beck for handling that pressure. I also was incredibly frustrated, Blake, by this overly conservative approach of using CJ Carr. And we always fall into this fallacy in football that we think young quarterback, we got to be careful. We got to run the football. We can't let him do anything too crazy. But after the 20th RPO and the 10th screen to the sideline, it was clear that Miami was prepared to counter what they were doing because everything was within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Nothing was aggressive and downfield. Once they said, you know what, we got to just go, take the training wheels off, let the kid improvise, let the kid be a natural playmaker, he made 2 to 3 of the biggest plays of the game. They need to not do
down roll, the third down scramble throw where he, does a loop-de-loop to figure eight and then throws. Did you see it was a no-look throw?
Yeah, he was looking right and he threw it left.
Right,
he's gifted, and we're trying to make this kid.
He did things that everyone thought Arch would do in week 1.
Yes, and it's before I kick it back over to you. The other play that required some instincts and being aggressive, the Reardon play that was the huge chunk play where he dropped everything. He's just navigating the pocket. Pressure's coming in his face. It's about to come right at him, and it clicks. He sees it, and he just lobs the ball up to him. He's wide open. They need to be more aggressive. They need to attack downfield. I'd rather he throw picks because they take a shot along the sideline than to throw one because he's thrown to the sideline on an RPO screen and makes the wrong read.
I got to be real with you. I don't remember Denbrock they came into the game saying that they felt that great at receiver, and I don't remember him being that gun shy. I don't. Not in my recent history of knowing the man.
Yeah.
Where's Jeremiah Love?
That's the next biggest thing for me.
I got to be real with you as an outsider looking in, and I know you're going to say, no, this isn't true. Joe, the fact that you're not using him tells me something's up.
That we can't.
No.
What would be up though? But what would be?
Why are you getting it? Why aren't you giving? You're going to have to convince me that Mike Denbrock in all the last 4 starts that we've seen him in, getting his playmakers the ball over and over and over again, even last year, that he just doesn't do it. Something like I've seen a lot of this. Oh, this is on Denbrock for not getting him in there. I call BS, brother. I got to call a little BS. Joe, name a time that he didn't get playmakers in space. Name a time.
Every time that Jeremiah Love was in the backfield, ball was snapped, and they knew he was getting the ball, he was stopped at the line of scrimmage.
That's not
as soon as he's
true. There were 2 long runs that got called back for holding.
Well, that was the other issue. So he finally starts getting into a rhythm, and those plays don't even count.
Doesn't mean you stop giving him the ball.
I don't think that they were deliberately.
You're running draws for 3 yards with CJ Carr. What's the difference in trying to let a playmaker who makes a lot of plays run stuff versus CJ Carr on the draw plays?
They're trying to ride the hot hand because they have a 3 deep running back group. I actually think it's more of an issue that they didn't get Anais Williams incorporated, unless it's something that I'm missing there with him. If he's not healthy or something, he didn't get any touches in this game.
Not getting your best playmaker the ball is abysmal.
But sometimes you can't. Sometimes a defense is so aggressive at stopping that guy, which clearly they were going to do.
Then figure it out. Get him out on a screen. Hit him on a check down. You can't just say because they're ready for the run game that you stop getting your best weapon the football. You can't say, he's in the backfield. They know they're going to run. Well, guess what? You ran draws. You did other things. There's other things that you can do. You don't have to just run inside and outside zone, which is exactly what he did.
This is what the problem with the play calling was, though, is that when we couple this circumstance of when Love is in the backfield and he's in the game and they're loading the box, and the only thing that you're willing to do throwing the football is to take these ultra risk averse throws that don't create any tension points with anybody deep down the field that are forcing a defense to spread out more, you're not going to find success. The biggest frustration for me, Blake, is there should be a lot more play action. The way that you get Jeremiah Love incorporated
that's exactly
more.
What I'm saying here.
That was the better solution to me.
Well, then fine. If that's your solution, then utilize that solution. Keeping him off the field is not the solution.
They weren't keeping him off the field. They were doing a lot of.
He played 50% of the snaps. He played under 45% of the snaps. I'm sorry. He is your best playmaker. You cannot tell me that there's not an issue when he's the best player on your team.
Okay, but I think we need to redefine what you're saying. There's no issue with Jeremiah Love. There is an issue with everything that we're talking about.
Do they not like him in pass pro?
No.
Why are you throwing the ball? Why are you throwing the ball and taking him out in pass pro?
That has nothing to do with it. I think it has everything to do with Mike Denbrock overthinking this, and he completely overthought the entire play calling of this game. That is what is more so the issue.
I don't know. Somebody's going to have to figure it out. I don't think Denbrock rotates when he's calling plays. He's not the running backs coach having guys stand right next to him and say, you go in, you come out, you go in, you come out. That's a running backs coach issue. Well,
so then that also goes on Juwan Sider, who they brought in from Penn State. Wait.
No,
so they brought in Sider from Penn State, who did that at Penn State with Singleton and Allen. Those guys rotated, but Singleton was the better running back.
No, it falls on your head coach. Your head coach has got to tell the guy that he hired, get the best player on our team the football and get him in there. Sorry.
I don't disagree with that premise, but I don't think that I think that it has everything to do with the overall decision-making with how they approached it.
All right. Here's the truth.
Okay.
You got a lot that you had to replace. It's the bottom line truth. You had an experienced quarterback. You had some experienced offensive linemen. You had to replace some things. You got and found a rhythm in the second half that you needed. I don't think that this is the end of the world for them at all. However, I do think that there are teams that are more explosive on your schedule that you're going to have to play. Did you get eyes on A&M and Concepcion?
They gave up 24 points.
I don't give a Rudy Poo. I don't give a Rudy Poo. You lost to Northern Illinois. We got to change.
That was last year. Was last year.
All right, you're going to mark my words. I'm telling you, if you're going to stay in man-to-man cover, a couple things here. Let's get to it. You got to continue to push the ball down the field. You can't be that conservative. Everybody knows what you're doing. And when teams have as good of, if not better, athletes than you can't keep ramming your head into the wall. You just can't do it. Number two, you got to get out of man-to-man coverage. You ran more man-to-man coverage than anybody in the country last year. No one ran more man coverage than you. They knew that what you were doing, and you got beat because of it. I think if they're not as conservative, meaning Miami, then you have an issue on your hands. I think that there's a better receiving core that you're facing in a couple of weeks, and if you stay in man-to-man – Joe, I think Concepcion right now is better than Tony.
Yeah, obviously, but I think there's a less dangerous passer in Marcel Reed. Carson Beck's a better passer than Marcel Reed.
Fair. But, I mean, Joe, all right. I'm just
before we move on to South Carolina, I think that for the case for Notre Dame fans here, I think a lot of the issues are frustrating, but they're extremely fixable. This is not like in past seasons where they didn't have a dynamic playmaker at quarterback, or they didn't have speed on the outside at receiver. Those issues don't exist for this Notre Dame team anymore. They need to reframe how they're calling this offense. They need to reframe how they're calling this defense. The athletes are on the field. They're all over the place. We saw them make plays on offense and on defense. And most importantly, I think that where Notre Dame fans should feel very excited about this team, Blake, is the fact that CJ Carr did look fantastic. I really thought that for outside of the training wheels that they stuck on him for the first half, as soon as he started to play a lot more freely, he was very dynamic. I think that if you give him time to get comfortable with that receiving unit, he's only going to improve. When we get to some of these super chats, Fravel even pointed out, I think that CJ Carr, Julian Sayin was better than him, but CJ Carr was better than most of these first-time starting quarterbacks this week. I stand by that.
But I don't think that CJ Carr faced off against Texas's defense either, because he didn't. That Texas defense is better than what we saw from Miami last night. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt.
Obviously.
So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but look, I thought CJ Carr was fine. I thought he was good. I wouldn't say he was fantastic. There are some throws he's got to hit. There's some the late game situation. I get he takes a sack. You can't get a grounding there. You got to take
twice.
You got to take the sack. There are some things he's got to clean up, and he's got to get those reps. And that's the bottom line fact. He is really athletic. He did some very athletic things. Look, you had two really evenly talented teams, and I thought Marcus Freeman in the postgame said it best, to be real with you. Look, don't point at this guy. Don't point at that guy. Point at ourselves. What could we have done better? You got some tougher matchups, but that A&M game becomes very serious now. Very serious, because if you can't beat A&M,
it's done.
What's the biggest win on your schedule to get into the playoff? They're
one. Unless USC is good this year.
Well, the only thing is that Miami would have to be an ACC champion caliber team, and then you've got to hope that A&M can find themselves in the playoff and just be like, well, we fell up short to two playoff teams, right? Yeah. So we'll see. All right, a couple of super chats here. Fravel with a $10 super chat says a lot of overreactions from the game. Notre Dame play their C- game. I don't know about that. Lost the turnover battle. Yeah, you can't turn the ball over twice. Trash play calling and still had a chance to win. I don't think that's a C- game, Joe.
Well, what would you grade it as?
When someone says it's their C- game, like, then we got to rewind the tape. Then how do you call that you getting dominated up front? Just because you got dominated up front doesn't mean that it's a C- game. It might just mean that their offensive line was a lot better than your defensive line, and they pushed you around a little.
Well, I think Fravel's point, which I do agree with, and this is kind of in the sentiment with a lot of people that I've texted with after the game that also cover Notre Dame, was you lose by 3 points and you had the amount of mistakes that you did. That it really, I'm being completely honest with you, when Miami went up multiple scores, it did feel like that there was a very strong chance that they were going to lose that thing by 14 or 17 points. To lose by 3, I think shows quite a bit of resilience.
Hold on now. Cristobal completely almost screwed himself again.
I know, but at the same time, just as much as we can criticize him, we can also be positive about Notre Dame rallying and still losing that close of a game despite not playing.
That is very, very, very fair. CJ did some really good things. I wouldn't say it's your C- game, though. I mean, I just
say it would have been better than a C- game. Is what?
Yeah, I think that was
it's probably like a B minus.
Well, I'd say B to B plus. So we're fighting over semantics.
Might be a little B plus. Might be a little high.
Joe, they got pushed around in the first half. You can't take that away. I mean, my mind can't take it away.
Well, that's
question for Blake: was it common for Denbrock at LSU to completely forget the running back room? No, not at all. I just don't get the game plan. You got to understand, though, he had a guy named Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it wasn't. The running backs weren't the number one.
No, they
athletes.
Well, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. led both rookies and were top 10 in the NFL in receiving. So my point is, to that, it was the part we just made up or brought up. Joe, I've never seen Mike go away from his best superstars before. He'd rather throw the ball 55 times and not give Malik Neighbors 12 targets. That's the part where it's just confusing as hell to me. I'm like, then why aren't you giving it to him? I mean, find him. Like, for an example, I remember Malik Neighbors coming in the backfield and them throwing him a screen. Just because they couldn't get in the ball. And I'm like, okay. Okay. That's the point that I'm just trying to make. No, I don't. Yeah. But he didn't feed Love and Price enough. So that's on Mike. Jet 305 with a $2 super chat says, Joe, Blake, what's the Miami's team ceiling?
I think the fact that, as we talked about at the beginning of the segment, they addressed the concerns that we had, and we obviously can't just live off of week one. You got to carry those things over to the rest of the season. But if that is the case, they can win the ACC. One of my biggest takeaways, by the way, this weekend, the top of the ACC is stronger than everybody thought. Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are all three very good teams, and I'm very curious to see how that stacks up. And Georgia Tech is going to be right there in the mix too. Like, this is a really good year for the ACC, surprisingly.
Very well could be. Very well could be. Freeman said, did CJ Carr have the best performance of any of the first-time starting quarterbacks? Watching him gave me Brady Quinn vibes.
Not better than saying, but nobody did better than, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I don't want to disrespect him, but the Cal quarterback, the true freshman, that kid is, pardon my language, fucking talented. Mm-hmm. That kid is one of the most gifted quarterbacks I've ever seen for a true freshman. And you know what Brian Harsin did of all people? He said, hey man, just go play football. We're just going to throw the rock. We're just going to go attack and have some fun.
Yeah. Who was that? Brian? Yeah. Who was that? Who's that Brian Harsin, by the way?
Right.
That's the crazy thing here. Do you consider Dante Moore in this?
They played Montana State, so it's kind of a little tricky. I would say he had a good performance, but
I just mean, like, do you consider him a first-time starter?
No, actually, no, because he started at UCLA, so no.
Well, so did Arch. I mean, Arch started 2 games, so did Moore.
Moore started more than 2 games.
Did he?
Yeah, he started a couple, but he played. He contributed. He was getting on the field.
Probably CJ Carr. Probably. All right, let's move to South Carolina, Virginia Tech. Joe, South Carolina and Virginia Tech took on each other in Atlanta and played out probably the best way a Beamer Field game could play out. Obviously, Shane Beamer being there, playing there, and his dad being the coach there for such a long time. Your thoughts on South Carolina and Virginia Tech and how this one played out?
Well, the big focus here is obviously what South Carolina did. And I was affirmed on a lot of the things that we were excited about South Carolina coming into this year. Now, they didn't play a perfectly clean game. There's some issues that I think still need to be worked out and that they need to figure out. But we have confirmed, even though we didn't need more evidence, that LaNorris Sellers is comically talented. And he is the best athlete on any field that he steps onto. And to further the offensive arsenal that they have, Blake, that running back room is deep, and those dudes run hard. Those dudes run hard as hell. It is going to be a tough out trying to slow down that rushing attack with so many different types of runners that all will punch you in the mouth. That is going to be a tough day for anybody. What are you going to say? Go ahead.
Well, just to add on to that, they bring an interesting point in what we saw from them. If their offensive line can hold on with what they do with the tight ends out of the backfield on these read options, because it is a read option, and getting them out in the flat. If you keep running the football as effectively as they can and you don't have some of these mess ups, Joe, Nick Harbor knocked on that door and showed everybody why he's a freak. He should have had 2 touchdowns. The one that got called away from him was BS. By the way, can you tell me what a catch is, by the way? Because Barryon Brown had one reverse and so did Nick Harbor. The problem that they presented during the Nick Harbor situation on the long post or fade, whatever you want to call it, Joe, them safeties had to walk up because they just kept getting punched in the mouth. They present a very interesting problem for teams or defensively.
And I think that to really emphasize that point, we talked about this in their preview. They have athletes all over the defense and in the secondary that just fly all over the field. And they're so instinctive. The turnovers that they had were bad plays by Kyron Drones, but to just have the patience and the vision to make the plays that those guys did was I love good football. And that was one of those things where you see it and you're just like, damn, that's just a freaking good play. We know Dylan Stewart's freaking awesome. That one sack that he had on Kyron Drones was kind of hilarious. He's one of the funniest sack artists in college football.
Did you see that he jumped? He started to jump from 7 yards out.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. He's the funniest pass rusher in college football because he's either like hawking dudes down like a cheetah, or he's just launching himself. Like I don't even know how to describe it. Like
he looks like a bald eagle coming down on the water to get a fish.
Yeah, he sees a fish or like a squirrel or something, and he's just like, I'm going to destroy that. And no, I love watching Dylan Stewart, man. He's one of the most fun players. Here's the only thing that I've got a little bit of pause on, though. The offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little worried. I think the Virginia Tech's defensive line could cause some serious problem in the ACC this year. There's some athletes in that group, a number of guys that were on Feldman's Freaks list that can really dominate. They allowed a 20% havoc rate, which is insanely high. They allowed 11 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. That, to me, has to be addressed, and they need to figure that out now.
Joe, they did probably one of the best jobs that we've seen. It's not like this isn't the same damn near offensive line that South Carolina had a year ago. So let me just say something quickly. I don't know if many teams are going to be able to replicate what they did. Go back and watch it. They were stunt the defensive tackles or put defensive ends at 3 techs, stunt them outside, and knowing LaNorris Sellers, they get so much interior pressure. So they're going to contain him on the outside. There were multiple times that they sent delayed blitzes right up the middle, and they just contained him. And I got to be real with you. They told LaNorris Sellers to throw the ball through, stay in the pocket and throw it. We're not going to – Joe, they just sent relentless amount of pressure on him. It was one of the best jobs I'd seen a team or a defensive coordinator execute by keeping him inside the pocket. Yeah. The times that they didn't, he flat ran them over. He might be the best athlete in the country when it's all said and done, based off of what he can do. They have got to get the running game going because it's going to open everything else. Joe, is Nick Harbor what everybody thought he's going to be? Because, I mean, let's just say for me, I make a mental check. I give him 4 catches, 100-plus yards, and 2 touchdowns in my mental clock. Just because it's not on the stat sheet does not mean that, to me, it didn't happen. They got him involved early. I got to be real with you. I think they need to go to him more. I think they need to they're going to have to get teams to dictate to either shade to him or do something, because if you can run the ball, and the offensive line can be an issue, I'm not disagreeing, but my God, man, you don't need to give Sellers a lot of time when he can do what he can do.
He is the next version of DK Metcalf. It's the easiest direct comparison where you've got this guy who looks like a stand-up outside linebacker, which he was a pass rusher in high school.
I was putting him as a DN.
A lot of recruiting analysts have kind of still said, while he hasn't really emerged with the receiver production, a lot of people think that he should just move to defensive end. He's starting to prove that wrong, though. I need more consistency, Blake, from him still. I can't jump all the way in after one game. But if he's able to do that stuff where he's just running past guys up the seam and nobody can keep up with him, that's what makes this team incredibly dangerous, because it's almost like the Steph Curry Warriors type of approach that you can pull off with the South Carolina team if you can generate those splash plays with Harbor. You can just run the rock and you can control time of possession, and then you can take an aggressive deep shot to Harbor over the top. It puts you in this really frustrating phase that you have to figure out as a defense, what the hell am I supposed to defend? You can't leave over the top open, but you also can't leave a big gap in the middle of the field in whatever your coverage is going to be, whatever you're calling. You're going to end up getting killed. It provides a lot of uniqueness, I think, to really threaten defenses. If he puts together more and more games like that, though, Blake, then I think I can absolutely get there. He has every tool to be the most gifted receiver in college football up there with Jeremiah Smith. The only difference is that Jeremiah Smith is more natural of an athlete, and he was ready to do it right away, while Nick Harbor has been still trying to figure it out.
There are a couple of things I want to get to before we move on here. I will remind people of what happened with Old Dominion in South Carolina a year ago. They had Mike Shula as their play caller. I think they worked through some things in the first half, and they just couldn't execute on third down.
Yep.
They were 4 for 12 on third down. Joe, they have a issue at boundary corner. They have an issue. Blake, it's one game. All right, this is going to be my Miami thing from last year. The only success Virginia Tech was having, they kept attacking the boundary. They did not look like that they had a lot of speed there.
I'm kind of vaguely remembering off the top of my head, but I believe Judge Collier went down with an injury.
He did.
So I think that
Joe
was part of it.
Fine. The guys behind him had a bad day by a quarterback who was highly inaccurate. Joe, think about this. Of Kyron Drones, of the 15, he went 15 to 35. Of the 15 completions they had, 9 of them came on the outside of the numbers. I mean, what are we doing? So let's monitor that situation right now. I look, South Carolina's gonna be okay. They're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
I thought, though, to end this segment before we get to Michigan, Oklahoma, it's the best way a Beamer-filled game could play out. Close. Shane Beamer takes the penalty, then gets him to re-kick, and then Swain takes one from 80 to the house. I mean, hold on.
Beamer got the game. Frank Beamer got the game ball too. The Sellers gave it to him.
I saw that. The crazy thing in this was I don't think this happened, but something in the back of my mind said, is Shane Beamer taking this a little bit easy and they're going to score on a special teams play to end this one as a Beamer would? And then it happened. Shane Beamer did this on purpose. You can't convince me otherwise.
That's a conspiracy theory and a half there.
Well, I mean, why are you taking vertical shots after you scored on special teams? Why do you open it up after you score on special teams?
It's a fair question.
He did this shit on purpose. I'm telling you, I know I'm not going crazy. All right. Don't call me a conspiracy theorist.
You do it all the time, so don't act like that's not a hot take.
Well, sometimes conspiracy theories are true. Joe, let's wrap it up here as we go and head into week 2. There's a massive game lurking on the horizon as one of the Big Ten's really good teams, Michigan, goes down to the great state of Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. Both teams not playing against opponents in week 1 that dominate or could dominate the field. New Mexico, Illinois State. Both of them dominated their games respectfully. But when you look at Oklahoma and you look at Michigan going into week 2, what are your thoughts on what's going to happen to the game here?
Well, first of all, obviously, there's not really much to derive from the 2 games that they had against New Mexico and Illinois State. But I do think that both these teams have a lot to prove. I think that Oklahoma obviously needs to capture a win like this with their brutal schedule in order to build some momentum. We have on the Michigan side of things, Bryce Underwood, who looked pretty sturdy, pretty reliable against New Mexico, even though he wasn't exactly challenged to do anything truly difficult. You get to start building confidence in that young man, and it's going to pay off later on in the season. Blake, right now where my lean is, and you talked about how there wasn't really as much excitement and explosiveness from the run game as one would hope going up against Illinois State. That's a game where you're supposed to just run the ball and end the game. That's one of those situations where that's supposed to happen.
After it was the number 1 talking point last year that your O-line was really bad.
Yeah. My current lean at this moment, Blake, I lean in the fact that of what we've seen from some of these SEC teams to start the season and how Michigan can establish the line of scrimmage, run the football, control time of possession, all of the cliches of Michigan football. I think if Bryce Underwood can start to get rolling as a runner, which they didn't really use him as such against New Mexico, that would be a big driving force for them winning this football game. But I have to see, though, is which playmaker steps up the most. This is going to be a really quarterback-driven game with 2 guys that are very different than one another, but are both incredibly dynamic.
This is what I'll say about Oklahoma. You should be able to line up and run the football in Illinois State. I don't care if you opened it up or not. Here's the thing, Joe, they did not show anything. They didn't. How many times are you going to run an RPO hitch and RPO hitch and RPO slant? How many times? Joe, did you know that they only threw the ball 3 times past 15 yards? Like they just didn't do it. So I don't think they showed you anything offensively. Here's the problem. Oklahoma got outrushed by Illinois State 117-103. 117-103. You have had an issue with this offensive line reverting from last year. It's Illinois State. Joe, it's Illinois State. They can't throw the football. They are a one-dimensional football team. They couldn't throw for 75 yards in the game, and you only put up 35 points on them. Like, what are we discussing here right now? The number one thing right now, when I look at this game, Oklahoma's offensive line. I don't care what I don't want to talk about Bryce Underwood right now. I really don't. We can talk about John Mateer because I do think John Mateer is going to have to do something special here to keep this one close and for them to win it, and he very well might. Joe, I think he's going to be running for his life. You better play contain, and you better find ways to get extensions of the run game. Joe, they had 100 yards. Sounds good. There were points in times where they had more 2nd and 10, 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11, 2nd and 13 than any SEC team that didn't play a Power 4 opponent literally all week. Like they were behind the chains constantly. I don't understand this. What's going on there? They don't look physical enough. But there is something from Michigan I'm also monitoring. Barham is out after the horrible targeting call in the second half. Did you see it?
I saw people talking about it. I didn't catch the clip.
Okay. The appeal today was denied. Joe, that's a massive break. Somebody
their best defensive player. That's their best defensive player.
Somebody from Oklahoma slipped that ref $20. You can't convince me otherwise. Regardless of that, with his absence in the first half, can you establish some things? It's a joke that kid's suspended. It's an outright joke. It was not a targeting. But, Joe, the defensive line for Michigan, they were so freaking good on Saturday. They were explosive as hell. They did a lot of really good things. When I look at it, it just boils down to one thing for me. Is this Oklahoma offensive line going to protect? Because, quite frankly, I saw some really good things from Bryce Underwood. Joe, he showed some of the throws he made showed you why he was the number 1 overall prospect in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if we're going to talk about first-time starters, I didn't want to say this when Fravel asked the question on the Super Chat. I thought Bryce Underwood had the best performance.
Well, he was going against New Mexico, so we got to take that with a grain of salt.
I can't say that, right? Yeah. Because it's against New Mexico. There are some throws that none of those other guys can make that he did make. I don't care if it's against New Mexico. I don't care. However, Joe, they went base defense. They did not do anything special. The thing that I revert to this in that I'm watching the most, what is Brent Venables going to send here? Is he going to confuse this young man? Can they run the football? Justice Haynes, hello. You think my Alabama needed that on Saturday? Because they did. Yeah. I mean, he ran all over New Mexico. So what is Brent Venables going to show this young man that gets him confused? Can you generate him, and having a couple of turnovers will be massive here for you?
Elks brought this up, saying that Venables does to Bryce what Perkins did to Arch. And my early – Patricia. So Venables will do to yes. I've had this. I've been having this back and forth with previewing this game, and I'm not directly giving a pick. The -5.5 is. God damn it! 1 second.
Oh no. Anyway, hold on. Joe's coming right back. Venables says Elks will do to. Hello. There we go.
Sorry,
okay.
I need to get this fixed. What I was saying, though,
permanent battery.
I can't find one for this camera. It's part of the problem.
Okay.
It's a separate issue.
Okay, continue.
Where I keep going back and forth, Blake, why I think I'm leaning. I'm liking the thought of Oklahoma winning this game and winning it somewhat confidently.
Oklahoma?
Blake, we watched all of week one. All of week one. All of these first-time starting quarterbacks going into hostile situations, even the ones that played the best, making a mistake that hurt them. Bryce Underwood's number one target against New Mexico was their starting tight end, Marlon Klein. I still don't know if they have receivers that they can turn to. There was no premier receiver production against New Mexico. So if you do an effective enough job of pressuring Underwood, like Venables will do with R. Mason Thomas and company that hold defensive line, you get in his face and he can't find Klein and you can't generate big plays and they close down the line of scrimmage, I think it's going to be tough sledding for them to succeed. I'm not saying that they blow them out. That's not what I'm getting at. But a home game in a situation where you've got a first-time starting quarterback, his first big-time environment, that has to be brought up because that was the theme of week one. And I think it's going to be a theme for the most of the beginning of the season.
It very well may, but Joe, you know what helps Michigan, though? I don't know if Oklahoma's going to be able to run the football. Like, I don't. And that worries the hell out of me. If you can't run the football, you're going to keep giving them short fields. Or John Mateer is going to have to be special. And Joe, if he is, that's probably where it's going to lead them to winning this game.
I think that Mateer showed us some really big positives on what the passing game can be. You know, the connections with Keontae Lewis stepping up as the second guy alongside Deion Burks, who, I love Deion Burks. I think having an established receiver room is where Oklahoma fans should feel pretty strongly going into this game, is that, like, you've got weapons. But that, to me, is the deciding factor. Is if Oklahoma can't run the ball and they're running into a stone wall every single time, then that keeps Michigan in it. At the end of the day, Blake, here's the simplest concept that we talk about with Michigan all the time. If this game is low scoring, Michigan wins the game. If this game is low scoring and you keep them in it within one score, 3 points, whatever it is, the whole game, Sherrone Moore and that team is going to find a way to sneak that thing out.
They're going to Ohio State you.
Yeah. They win games that they're not supposed to all the time because they keep the score low and then they sneak one turnover or something that gives them the edge. You got to try and separate early. You got to be aggressive early. You got to find a run game. Those are the biggest keys for Oklahoma here.
Alex, his point was one of the talking points that I wrote down. How much did teams open it up? Does Michigan want to open up? How much is here's another thing too. How effectively is their running game? I know that, Oklahoma kind of felt like defensively they were pitter-pattering around a little. Can they stop Michigan from running the football effectively will be a big question. But, Joe, I hear what you're saying. I'm not putting a pick in for this one yet. The only thing that I would say is that O-line scares me for Oklahoma. And I do think that their defensive staff's going to put some things together for him that maybe he hasn't seen. So, look, this is interesting. You brought up an interesting point about the SEC. Some of these teams in the SEC are going to have to start showing up. You can't let Bama take a punch in the mouth like that and think that, look, man, it just can't happen. So we'll see.
I do think that that's an interesting narrative to follow. But actually, by the way, in all seriousness, like, it's actually kind of crazy to think that the power struggle for conferences now lies on the shoulders of Oklahoma. The SEC needs Oklahoma to win this game because if Michigan wins this game on the road with a true freshman quarterback, could you imagine the narratives that are going to come out of that?
I will say this. I think it's a little overreaction from one thing. The SEC was the only team to have 6 games Power 4 versus Power 4. They went 4-2, okay? Big 12 went 2-1. We don't know that yet. to the full extent. Let me throw this your way, though. People see the A on the they see the A on the jersey and the number on the side of the helmet, and they think, oh my God, Alabama goes down. That team lost to Vanderbilt last year and got pushed around. Like, did LSU show something? Is Georgia who we think they are? What is Auburn? What is A&M? Yeah. Like, there are a lot of teams that we don't know about. Just because Bama lost doesn't mean a conference is bad. I mean, just because Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois didn't mean that they couldn't beat Georgia.
That's fair. I know. I obviously like to stir the pot a little bit. We had a couple before we get out of here. And I know you got to get to your next show, but we had a couple super chats.
Buck says a $2 super chat says, remember when you two disliked the
wrong?
You didn't.
That is wrong. I go back and watch the segment, dude. This always pisses me off. And Dick Buck, I know that you're a longtime listener and you give us a lot of super chats. I'm not calling you out, but like the Miami fans were doing that this week, telling me I'm a big Miami hater. And it was in the comments of this live show. Go watch every freaking segment of last year, guys. Go watch them after Patricia segment. Don't change my takes after the fact. Don't change Blake's takes after the fact. Hate when people do that.
Well, hold on. They're crowning him after one game.
Okay, I understand that you don't want to jump to any conclusions. It's completely fair. But at the same time, I still had high hopes for what Patricia could do.
Sure. But you're coming in here in a week one after a 1 week. You can't say Arch Manning was one of the worst starting quarterbacks and underperformed, and he did miss a lot of receivers. So, like, you can't have it both ways. Don't. So fair. Who do they play? Penn State in a couple weeks. Penn State. By the way, did you see Dennis Sutton?
Well, I mean, they're going against Nevada, but he's a good player. I've been hyping him up for a long time.
Shit. Watch, y'all lose to Penn State, you ain't gonna be saying that.
We had one more from Sharif.
Sharif Milligan says, question for Blake again. What do you think Clemson's ceiling is? Is bad to say Garrett Riley is our problem. Offense is horizontal, nothing vertical. Listen. So to Sharif, I've seen LSU 14 straight practices and then Saturday. Okay. I just think you faced off against a really good defense, Joe. Like the problem is though, man, I don't think Peter Woods or TJ Parker against what I think is still an average offensive line did what top 10 overall picks do. I don't. I legitimately don't. I went back and watched it today from the 22, and Joe, I got to be real with you. In the second half, that offensive line was getting pushed. I don't think Clemson fans are really ready to have that conversation yet. They got pushed. I mean, Joe, how about this? I'm talking about this literally in 5 minutes. LSU in the second half had three runs of 15 yards or longer called back by penalties. You got gashed. Pete, all right.
They'll be fine against the rest of the ACC, though.
You're going to go against teams that can line up with better offensive lines than LSU and punch you in the mouth. I'm telling you, Joe, we're going to come in here in 7 or 8 weeks, and we're going to say, Blake, we got to have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, we do. Watch what I'm telling you. I know you don't like me saying that, but it's a truth. Neither one of them kids are top 10 picks. They're not top 10 picks.
I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that.
Caleb Banks is better than Peter Woods.
Oh yeah, I have a higher grade on Caleb Banks.
Okay, then put him over. Okay, there are 9 other players better than him. There are 15 players better than Peter Woods in college football right now. No, sorry. In reference to the Garrett Riley situation, here's the thing. Joe, LSU had a 5-man box damn near the whole time, 5, maybe 6-man box, and they played too high. You couldn't go vertical.
I mean, that's how you stop air raid. You just
keep everything in front of you and tackle well.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. But Joe, here's the problem, man. They had 5-man boxes and they couldn't run. Did you see the clip I posted on Twitter? Harold Parkins come on, dude. Come on. All right. Yeah, sorry. All right, I really do got to roll.
Yeah, I know you got to get going. I know.
See you tomorrow. New show tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Peace.